Welcome to West Michigan Philanthropy. I'm John McFarland with the Miller Johnson's Trust and Estates Practice Group, and today I have as my guest Carolyn Kley Fanning with Hillsdale College, a senior gift and estate planning counselor with Hillsdale for many years. Welcome, Carolyn.
Hi, good to see you.
Carolyn and I, as a disclaimer, are colleagues. I worked for Hillsdale for many years, and so we are very familiar with a lot of plan giving topics. Today, we're going to talk about charitable remainder trusts and how they are used and can be used by donors to facilitate gifts to charity, but also allow them to retain an income interest to benefit them during lifetime. Carolyn, I thought I'd just talk generally about a standard CRUT and how that works, and we can go off on the various variations of charitable remainder trusts and how they work. But generally, a charitable remainder trust is an irrevocable trust, and the donor will make a gift, typically of cash or securities, sometimes real estate, to that charitable remainder trust, and they retain a lifetime income from that trust. The minimum payout is 5%. I think some of the benefits of the charitable remainder trust we see with donors and clients is that you can have an upfront bypass of the capital gains taxes if you fund it with appreciated securities. The goal is to increase your income. If you had maybe a concentrated stock portfolio and you want to diversify that portfolio, you can fund that charitable remainder trust with that concentrated stock portfolio. The trustee can sell it, diversify, hopefully increase your income. And I think one of the great tax benefits for taxpayers and donors is that charitable income tax deduction that you receive for the present value of the remainder gift that goes to charity. We see, I think, a lot of times, Carolyn, I know that when we did work with Hillsdale, Hillsdale would be the trustee, serve as a trustee, and would oftentimes be the remainder beneficiary. But you can name multiple remainder beneficiaries to a charitable remainder trust, which I think is attractive to donors and taxpayers. I know that you have some unique experiences with charitable remainder trusts. What type of assets have you seen used to fund a charitable remainder trust in your work?
Well, as you said, commonly we see stock or real estate possibly. In fact, I would probably put real estate up at number one as opposed to number three or lower, because we see a great many people using the charitable remainder trust as a receptacle of appreciated real estate. And the good news with the charitable remainder trust is that there are different sort of variations on a theme with the charitable remainder trust that protect the principal. So, for example, with a charitable gift annuity, that income stream must be paid almost immediately. But with the charitable remainder trust, we see, as I said, these variations. So the trust can be written with a net income provision, net income with makeup, combination of the standard trust and with the net income provision. And what that says is that the trust will only pay income to the extent that it is earned. So if a piece of real estate goes in, and as we all know, real estate might sell right away, but probably won't, or it could have some other issues. And so if the real estate goes into the charitable remainder trust and it's what we call a net income trust, that trust will only pay income to the extent that it is earned. And so until the property sells, there's no requirement that income has to be paid in excess of earnings, maybe from rent or something else.
Which helps with the illiquidity issue. I think that the trustee is concerned. They don't want to have a piece of real estate donated to just a standard charitable remainder unit trust, and then maybe have to deed out fractional interest to satisfy the unit trust payment.
Right.
That flip provision that you referenced, Carolyn, the net income flip to the standard unit trust kind of takes care of that liquidity issue, and you can wait until the property sells. Really, you pay the lesser of the net income or the stated unit trust percentage until it sells, and then the sale date could be the triggering event. And then the next calendar year it flips to the standard CRUT, and you have liquid proceeds then to make that unit trust payment.
Yeah, and at Hillsdale, that for gifts of real estate, we only do those flip trusts, which again, as you said, start off life as a net income, and then once the property sells, they flip to what we call a straight unit trust, which applies that payout percentage, 5, 6, 7% maybe, to the annual value of trust assets. And so I think a lot of donors, especially to the college, like the fact that the charitable trust is very sensitive to market forces, interest rate fluctuations, inflation,
Inflation's a big
that
issue.
sort of thing. And so the payout percentage is not applied to the initial value of trust assets, although it could be with another kind of charitable trust. But in general, it is that moving annual value figure. And of course, the hope is that the annual value of the trust is increasing over time, which I think in general, that's what we see. And that's the prime reason that most people select the variable payment unit trust over the fixed payment annuity trust. So, we see a lot of that going on. But in addition to real estate, just to get back to your initial question, we see charitable trusts funded with all kinds of interesting assets, shall we say, tangible property. I think years ago at Hillsdale, we had a charitable remainder trust funded with a collection of antique Rolls-Royce cars. You might even remember this, JT. You probably were there, I think. And so I'm sure neither one of us will ever live to see this happen again. But again, an example of tangible property, which creates more hoops to jump through and regulatory requirements and so forth. But again, insurance policies, sometimes business interests, or business assets mostly, from LLCs, S corps, things like that. Charitable remainder trust can be funded today or at death for the benefit of someone else too. And that's nice, especially when we're looking at new regulations as they apply to the individual retirement accounts, the IRAs, where the beneficiary of a stretch IRA has to take that income over that compressed 10-year period. And so there's a much higher tax that has to be paid, obviously, in that 10-year period, as opposed to the recipient's lifetime as it was previously. And so the testamentary charitable remainder trust can pay that income stream over lives, term of years, lives plus term of years. So there's a great deal of flexibility in terms of giving assets to future generations, or really giving the income from those assets. And that's what a lot of people want to do when they're leaving an IRA to family members. They don't give them a lump sum, they spread it out over a period of time. But again, it's a compressed period of time, whereas the charitable trust does not have any such requirements. So there are lots of uses. It's a very flexible planning tool, all kinds of different assets. We always tell people, please tell us what asset is giving you trouble. It may or may not work. It's hard to tell initially, but again, it probably is the most flexible giving vehicle that we have. It's not perfect for everybody, but in the right circumstances, I think provides some very powerful benefits.
I was going to mention, just to kind of dovetail on what you had mentioned about the IRA to the charitable remainder trust. You see a lot of discussion about that now, and at estate planning conferences, where you and I we've always seen that used. But I think after Secure 2.0, with the compressed 10-year period, and you no longer could have what they call the stretch IRA or the inherited IRA opportunity to defer income tax, that is really catching some momentum, I think, in estate planning circles now. The IRA to the charitable remainder unit trust, to really try to leverage a little bit more of the IRA assets, and trying to stretch that out somewhat through the CRUT. And obviously you have to pay the tax as the beneficiary receives those unit trust payments, but it is a good opportunity for people who are charitably motivated to try to save a little bit with those traditional IRA assets.
Exactly.
Have you ever dealt, and I've seen this happen, out west, sometimes I've heard of people using timber or other types of
Oh,
crops to fund a charitable remainder.
yeah.
I know that availability is there. I've never done that personally in my practice, but there are instances where I've read of people actually doing that, CRUTs funded
Right.
with timber and those types of assets, or
I heard
livestock.
livestock, right? Patents, copyrights, intellectual property,
Coin collections, perhaps.
cryptocurrency, all kinds of coin collection, stamps. I'm trying to think what else I've seen, but it's not that we have seen all of these at Hillsdale, but yet, the possibility certainly exists. And I just think that if an individual has some type of asset, and this is why it's so important that people take an inventory and a stock of everything they have, because obviously some assets make better charitable gifts and some assets make better family gifts. So in order to make that determination, of course, you've got to know what you've got and what might cause a problem for you and your family
How's it taxed?
as time goes on, or when you pass that asset to someone in the future, what actually is going to happen. So, that's
One thing I've seen, and I know that Hillsdale does a nice job of this, is the taxation of these unit trust income payments. There's a 4-tier taxation structure where it's basically the highest rates for ordinary income, then capital gain, then other income, then tax-free return of principal. Kind of works your way down. It's possible, and I've seen people talk about this, that perhaps the investment management of the trust corpus itself could be more focused towards growth, to try to get down to that tier 2 cap gain rate on the payout, as long as you're not doing it in a manner that's going to be so volatile that you're going to risk perhaps jeopardizing that charitable remainder interest to the charitable remainder beneficiaries. You don't want to do anything to risk a lawsuit down the road, but but if you can do it in a way for perhaps a younger donor who's more focused on retirement and wants to have growth in that trust portfolio, they could potentially get down to that tier 2 level, which is going to be less than maybe the top 37% bracket. You're down to 23.8, I think it would be, at that tier 2 level, depending on where you are with the gain. So there are opportunities there, and I think Hillsdale does some of that as well.
Yeah, no, we have actually a special charitable remainder unit trust that focuses exclusively on younger people who want to save more for retirement. So maybe somebody in their 40s or 50s worried about Social Security. Will it be there? Will it pay out what it's supposed to pay out, and so forth? And so what we've seen, or what we've done at Hillsdale, is we call it a freedom trust, but it's just a charitable remainder trust with a special retirement focused portfolio, retirement focused on growth as opposed to current income. And so for people that put in, and it behaves exactly as the standard trust, in that you dedicate assets into this trust currently, take the tax deduction, avoid the upfront capital gain tax, but not expecting a lot of current income over the next maybe 10 or 20 years or whatever, but deferring that income, obviously, until retirement years, and focusing the portfolio focusing on long-term growth, as opposed to that current income. So that's what we're doing at Hillsdale, and we've had a reasonable success with younger people who are interested in that kind of opportunity and really don't want or need the income right now. So anyway, that's one use of the charitable remainder trust, one of many, of course, but again, one that focuses on that problem that we're seeing right now with Social Security and the need to put more aside in a tax-wise manner for retirement years.
One thing we see here a lot in West Michigan with our client base in particular is they want to leave assets to children and grandchildren, but they don't want to leave too much. And so oftentimes I will discuss charitable remainder trust with clients because there's a way you can structure that so that the income stream is not going to be excessive. They could kind of budget in some way and determine, okay, if we put this much into a charitable remainder trust and the children are a beneficiary, you could budget how much potentially income they would receive as opposed to giving those assets outright to the children or grandchildren and still accomplishing charitable goals in the process. I know that Charles Schultz with Crescendo talks a lot about using charitable lead annuity trusts, and then on the tail end, using charitable remainder trusts to receive those CLAT assets after the CLAT term expires, with that idea of kind of budgeting for descendants so you don't give away too much. And that seems to be, West Michigan is a community where people have very set values and know what type of legacy they want to leave for children and grandchildren. And one concern they have is leaving too much to those children and grandchildren. So
yeah, what are they going to do with it is the question. You brought up an interesting point though on the lead trust, because when an asset comes out of the lead trust and is returned to the family, if that's a capital asset, it does not come out with a stepped up basis. And so if the kids receive that asset back and then proceed to sell it, well, guess what? Now we've got a capital gain problem again. But if it's rolled over at that point into a charitable remainder trust, we have, again, avoidance of that upfront tax. Now, of course, the asset ultimately will go to charity, not to children. But, in the meantime, again, it's a way to provide for family members. And certainly, this better than I do, but about the trustees' power to sprinkle those payments among beneficiaries. So not everybody has to absolutely get the same amount. And so, a lot of flexibility there, I think, in terms of deciding how much and to whom this income stream is paid. So, but the lead trust is a very good example. We don't talk about lead trusts that much because we don't see a ton of them. And yet, I don't know why. I mean, they offer some really great benefits, and one of which, of course, is the ability to keep assets in the family in a very tax-wise manner and prevent the erosion of those assets through gift and estate taxation. So I think we should talk about them more. But again, the remainder trust fixes that problem about when they're ultimately returned to the family.
we've seen quite a few CLATs here, and it's typically their clients who are looking to make gifts to charity, but also use the vehicle to leverage the estate tax exclusion and transfer assets that have the potential to appreciate significantly down to children in a tax efficient manner. And then doing that, and then also tagging, as you had mentioned, the charitable remainder unit trust on the tail end of that, you eliminate that issue of not having, you still have a low basis in those assets that were the CLAT assets that flow into the CRUT, and then you can sell those within the CRUT without the capital gain issue. So an effective use, and we've seen quite a few of those. It's slowed down a little bit with interest rates rising. That it's not as good for the CLAT with the higher AFRs. When we saw the low AFRs, we saw quite a few, but the AFRs rising are really better for the CRUTs now with the remainder interest in terms of that present value and the income tax deduction. So
it's that inverse versus direct relationship. Right.
So some benefits there, regardless of where the interest rates go. We could send the clients and the donors to the appropriate vehicle, I guess.
It'll work at a given time, right? Depending on what's going on. I mean, the rising interest rates in general have generally been a good thing, but they're starting to dip back down now again. So, it's anybody's guess, I suppose. In
terms of where you see donors set that unit trust percentage, the minimum by law is 5%. Do you have a sense of where donors or clients tend to do better in terms of the success of the plan gift with the CRUT. I guess it depends on their objectives, but you had mentioned inflation, Carolyn, and if you set that, obviously set it lower at the 5% and you return 8% with your investments, you have a bit of a hedge against inflation with that growth built into it, as opposed to a gift annuity or a CRAT where you're not going to have that same sort of inflation hedge with the growth in the CRUT portfolio. So
no, actually, I think you just hit on the major point right there is the glory of compounding. A lower payout rate might seem like it's providing less income, but overall, we see people selecting that lower payout rate precisely because their overall income, in their estimation, because of compounding, will actually be higher with that lower payout percentage than it would have been with a 7 or 8% payout, which almost has no compounding probably, and is distributing all that income. So a little bit counterintuitive, but not really when you think about inflation and you think about compounding and that sort of thing.
I like to recommend CRUTs to clients because really the income beneficiary and the remainder beneficiary have the same interest of seeing that trust corpus grow, because as a trust corpus grows, the income stream flowing to the income beneficiary is going to grow, because it's as you mentioned, it's valued annually, and there's somewhat of a variable income stream in terms of those flowing to the beneficiary. And then as the corpus grows, that means the charity is going to get more money down the road. So there's a united interest to see the growth of that corpus from both the income and remainder beneficiaries, which I think is a nice thing to make these gifts successful.
Very much. And as you said, especially, I don't know what other charities do, but at Hillsdale, we will be the trustee even if we are not the only remainder beneficiary. So many times, we're managing and doing all the trustee duties and so forth, but yet we know we're a major beneficiary. But again, smaller groups maybe that don't have that capability are also benefiting from this one charitable remainder trust. They don't have to have a trust for Hillsdale and another college or a hospital or whatever the charity might be. And there's also that ability, even though the trust is irrevocable, the right can be retained. And maybe you've seen this. I've seen this a number of times where the donor can retain the right to change the ultimate charitable beneficiary. So you're not beholden to some group that has gone completely astray from its mission after the trust is signed. It's irrevocable, but you can retain that power to say, wait a minute, I don't want to support these clowns anymore. So well,
we see that
this,
here.
I'm sure.
It's interesting because that came up in a prior conversation that I was having earlier today, that with mission drift, you see that. And I think when you're planning for your estate or you're doing these irrevocable charitable plans, that is a big issue. And there've been some high profile cases where charities have drifted from their mission, or there's a designation and they're not following it, and family members do the
all the time. You should see the court cases.
some foundations that have drifted significantly with their mission. So I like that ability to, be able to pull the string. If the charity isn't doing what they said they were going to do, then you could always alter that remainder beneficiary, which I think is a wise thing to do.
Sure. Yeah, we've seen it a lot, and I hadn't heard that term mission drift, but I'm going to use that now. So.
and so Hillsdale has some pretty prominent graduates in the Grand Rapids area. I know that there's the Van Andel Graduate School of Statesmanship there in Hillsdale, and then also the Van Andel Graduate School of Government in Washington, D.C. Hillsdale's a unique institution. No federal funding that sets it apart from a lot of institutions of higher learning. That's for sure. You have Pat Sajak as the chairman of your board.
Right.
Pretty interesting there. And then locally, I think here in Grand Rapids, Jared Valdir, who's a well-known graduate of Hillsdale, played in the NFL for the Arizona Cardinals, the Raiders, I think for the Packers for a brief spell there as well. So, and then I believe Denver as well. So, but so there's quite a few graduates in the Grand Rapids area. It's always fun to have the receptions here in town and get to see everybody. It's amazing to see the number of graduates in West Michigan and in Grand Rapids in particular. So,
oh, I think so. And by and large, we have wonderful alums, but also most of the support for the college comes from non-alums all throughout the country who just support the mission of independence and education. And now we're getting into K through 12 education and that sort of thing. And so
you're in the minority there in terms of higher ed. That's for sure. I think there are very few schools that can make that claim, and it's not easy to do.
No, I mean, you don't have the money, right? I mean,
and that's where I think the plan giving comes in. I think in Hillsdale's case in particular, had to really learn these plan gifts and just for its own survival, to really know the ins and outs of the charitable remainder trust, charitable gift annuities, different types of estate bequests, and has built a tremendous team. I think that in my dealings, I've seen the work of the college and the people that they have there really quite knowledgeable in these areas, and they can get pretty technical quickly. So, but the CRUTs are there, and we I think we mentioned previously the Secure Act 2.0 allows for gifts from traditional IRAs to now fund split interest vehicles, charitable remainder trusts, and charitable gift annuities. Kind of a limited aspect in terms of the amount. It's a $50,000 amount, and it's a one-time deal that you can make that election, but it opens up opportunities for people who want to make those gifts from their traditional IRA.
Exactly. And who knows where it'll lead, right? They've been working on this idea for a really long time. So, just because it's 50,000 one time now, things
maybe they'll open
changing
it up
occasionally.
I think the original idea was to have it be 400,000. I know this goes way back to
the protection. Remember that years and years ago.
But at least they were able to break through, because I think they've been trying that with lobbying in Washington for years to open that up. And so it's nice to see opportunities for taxpayers and donors to do good locally with charities they support, and use different types of assets for that. So
exactly.
Well, Carolyn, it's good to see you again, and I thank you for joining us today. It's always good to be able to tap into your knowledge and all that you have to offer. So,
my pleasure. Good to see you. Love talking about this, as you might be able to tell, but it's always a pleasure to describe the benefits and how people can and really make sure that their assets are going to the people and the institutions that they want to support. And
absolutely.
So that's our goal at Hillsdale College, always, is to make sure that everybody's on the same page and things are happening in a way that an individual wants them to happen. And whether that includes Hillsdale, it's great if it does, but again, we really want to make sure that people are achieving their goals here.
I think that idea of the legacy and the family and the values is a key component we see with our clients here at Miller Johnson, and in West Michigan in particular. That's a big issue. So, well, thank you again. Appreciate your time, and it's been interesting to talk to you.
All right. Take care.
Care.
Bye-bye.